because in this story, I am the news. I've received two extremely disturbing letters, or a letter and an email, one from a mainstream media TV company, one from a newspaper, listing a litany of extremely egregious and aggressive attacks, as well as some pretty stupid stuff, like my community festival should be stopped, that I shouldn't be able to attack mainstream media narratives on this channel. But amidst this litany of astonishing, rather baroque attacks are some very serious allegations that I absolutely refute. These allegations pertain to the time when I was working in the mainstream, when I was in the newspapers all the time, when I was in the movies, and as I've written about extensively in my books, I was very, very promiscuous. Now, during that time of promiscuity, the relationships I had were absolutely always consensual. I was always transparent about that then, almost too transparent, and I'm being transparent about it now as well. And to see that transparency metastasized into something criminal that I absolutely deny makes me question, is there another agenda at play?
Let's talk about Russell Brand, because there is a lot going on here. I'm not going to determine the veracity of these claims at this time because there is still a lot unfolding, and I feel that this should be left to the legal system, for which I still hold to the belief that someone is innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. I do want to point out that all of these allegations are from anonymous sources and is only being litigated in the press, not through any legal manner. As of yet. At this time, actual charges have not been brought forward. And despite that, Russell's channel has been demonetized and some of his content has been removed in the UK. What I want to focus on here is the timing of these allegations, because that is one of, if not the biggest things that is making this situation with Russell so critical. Think about where we are right now. The US is waging a proxy war in Ukraine, fanning the flames of tension and aggression with nuclear-armed countries like Russia and China. We have an ailing president that is unable to go a week without some type of gaffe, and our economy is struggling because of all of it.
We also stand ready to work together with China on issues where progress hinges on our common efforts. Nowhere is that more critical than accelerating the climate crisis, than the accelerating climate crisis. Now, even as we evolve our institutions and drive creative new partnerships, let me be clear. Certain principles of our international system are sacrosanct.
Meanwhile, mainstream media is seeing, for some time now, some of the biggest dips in ratings because of so many people either tuning out or turning to alternative media streams, most popular, YouTube. Mainstream media is struggling to contain certain narratives, especially following the last 3 years of the misinformation wars that is steadily seeing that alternative media has been more right than wrong, especially in regards to calling out mainstream media, their ties to politicians, the corporate elite, and the donor class, all of which has a big influence on the way mainstream media reports.
Good Morning America is brought to you by Pfizer.
CBS Health Watch sponsored by Pfizer.
Anderson Cooper 360. Brought to you by Pfizer.
ABC News Nightline. Brought to you by Pfizer.
Making a difference. Brought to you by Pfizer.
CNN Tonight. Brought to you by Pfizer. Early Start. Brought to you by Pfizer. Friday night on Aaron Burnett Out Front. Brought to you by Pfizer.
This Week with George Stephanopoulos is brought to you by Pfizer.
This weather report brought to you by Pfizer.
Today's countdown to the royal wedding is brought to you by Pfizer.
And now a CBS Sports Update brought to you by Pfizer.
Meet the Press data download brought to you by Pfizer.
This portion of CBS This Morning sponsored by Pfizer.
On how to find the hidden sugars in the American family diet. Sponsored by Pfizer.
We are also at too many unprecedented points of history, from financial crises, food and housing insecurity, an exponentially growing homelessness population. Children are going hungry, multiple climate crises leaving individuals to fend for themselves, and divisive ideological rhetoric is being fed to the people nonstop. How does this relate to Russell? Well, the sheer fact that all of these issues are things he discusses passionately and at length. He is, for all intents and purposes, doing his part to expose how the elite world works, because he was, and in some ways still is, part of it. He benefited from it, arguably, a lot. And I don't think that's something Russell would refute. He is a pretty candid individual that has admitted in multiple formats that he was not a great person when he was in the Hollywood sphere. From drug addictions, promiscuous behavior, misogyny, etc. Russell has, to possibly his detriment, been extremely open around all of this. This is where the timing factor comes in. Whether or not the allegations are true, the fact remains that these allegations are being brought forth at a time when all of these crises are coming to a head. They are things that Russell speaks on almost religiously and has garnered a massive following because of those worldviews. And now that his channel has been demonetized and some videos removed, Russell and the rest of us are starting to see this as more than what it appears, which it's starting to blatantly appear as a swift move from the establishment to further relegate Russell to the outskirts in order to silence him and quell any further growth. What Russell espouses, whether one agrees with him or everything he says, or not at all, are things that many people believe, and for many, are living on a daily basis. People are struggling to put food on the table, keep a roof over their head, and just make it to the next day. This is partly why Russell's base is so large and so popular. Like many other celebrities, he is going to have diehard fans that see him unable to do anything wrong. He will have others that will find these revelations off-putting, but will stick around because of the basis of what he believes now and what he discusses. And then there will be the inevitable and understandable group that thinks this behavior is beyond the pale and will no longer support Russell. And it's that last group, the ones that will say, I no longer support Russell, that mainstream media is aiming to get. Like I said, I'm not saying that I do or don't believe these allegations. I do see that we are at a critical time right before an election. This is always when media starts to do their spinning. Some of the most common tactics used prior to a contentious election is deflection, obfuscation, and attacking credibility. While Russell is not the one going up for election, he is having an effect on how people are perceiving and believing what they are being told by mainstream media and politicians, which, if not stopped or obstructed, is going to lead to unfavorable results, most likely. In using the typical political playbook, the only next step to bring Russell's popularity down and call his character into question is to bring up things from his past, whether or not true. And by most metrics, it's starting to work. His channel has been demonetized based purely on anonymous allegations. That's a large leap, if you ask me. Long-term demonetization will affect Russell's team, and if this demonetization continues for a long period of time, it puts their jobs at risk. And as people scour the internet and review these claims, more will inevitably be divulged. We don't have to go all that far back to see how similar this is to when the Me Too movement lost itself. The height of the Me Too movement occurred when people like Harvey Weinstein and Bill Cosby were exposed for decades worth of harassment, assault, and so much more. The movement was catapulted into the mainstream thanks to people like Alyssa Milano doing her performative outrage during the Kavanaugh hearing. When it came to the 2020 election, however, and Joe Biden's multiple allegations of assault, harassment, non-consensual touching, sniffing, grabbing, etc., the Me Too movement's loudest advocates were nowhere to be found. And mainstream media was practically silent. And that was an orchestrated, strategic move by mainstream media, working alongside the Biden campaign. I discussed Biden's allegations at length in a blog piece in April 2020, as well as calling out the hypocrisy of the Me Too movement's failure to acknowledge, at the very least, the serious allegations of Tara Reade and multiple other women that had a lot of receipts against Joe Biden. But the mainstream media worked hand in hand with the Biden campaign to silence Tara, vetting her allegations to a much farther extent than most other women's allegations, despite her claims checking out. There's a lot to unpack with all of these allegations, which I still believe should be left to the legal system. But mainstream media doesn't operate that way. They are selective, which is why Tara was disregarded and her voice silenced. And media is timely on their revelations, if they ever happen. Remember Epstein? So while I do not know if the allegations brought forward against Russell are true, what I do know is that this is going to be another distraction. A distraction for both the left and the right, where people are going to disagree or agree, and people will get outraged on whether or not their most favorite person agrees with their agreement or disagreement with Russell. Honestly, these tactics are just getting pretty tired and obvious, but that's just me. I hope that the many commentators that take on this story will give it its moment, but not get mired in weeks of coverage when we know there is a lot more going on that deserves attention too. If Russell has taught us anything that we can still utilize, it's that the elite are going to do anything they can to keep us divided and fighting each other. Separating the creator from the creation is never easy, but I do hope that Russell's message of coming together, being stronger together, can persevere, regardless of what happens with Russell. So take all of these things with a grain of salt. Don't let idolization of a celebrity cloud the possibility that he has maybe done something awful and heinous. At the end of the day, we are all human.
You sure about that?
And we know that humans make mistakes and have the capacity to do pretty evil things. Humans can be good and bad, diabolical and worshipped all at the same time. My advice is to not let any celebrity put the blindfold over you that they are somehow better because of their celebrity. If anything, being that popular means you've been willing to do some stuff. And we know the elites love to keep stuff on each other for these exact moments. Take it all as you will. I am going to wait and see. I will not be surprised if Russell is found to have done things that are heinous. There's already some evidence to suggest that. Everyone makes mistakes, says and does things wrong, and some of those things will be a lot worse than others when weighed out. Hopefully, we can all take this as a reminder that no one is above anything. Well, thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up and also subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss out on new videos. And let me know down in the comments below what you guys think of this. As always, stay safe, take care, and be kind to each other.